Just a little hobbit to Here, chapter 34 in Tiferes Yisrael. This is a book from the Maharal, 1600, teaching us about what Torah is. And here he's going to talk about the oneness of Torah. Oneness of Torah. Baruch Hashem, oneness. This blessing us all with every time we learn whatever particular thing we learn, it should be the whole entire Torah every time. Just the whole thing. Just know every bit is the whole thing, not just the whole thing. V'daber Elokim as kol hadvarim ha'ela leimar, right? Hashem spoke all of these words. This is the opening pasuk, verses Yitro to the Ten Commandments. It's chapter 19 chapter 20 verse 1. V'daber Elokim es kol hadvarim ha'ela leimar. It means the mechilta. Kol hadvarim b'dibur echad nemru. The entire Torah was said in one utterance, one like orchestra hit, like it was the whole thing. What?
Universe,
exactly. Beautiful. Universe. Geschmack. Excellence.
Yeah, that's what people do.
Opa. Kol advarim b'dibur echad nemru. Ma she'i efshar lebasar v'dam lomar. With that which would be totally impossible for a human being to communicate in that kind of a way. Im kain, if so, says the Midrash, the Chilta. Ma Talmud lomar anoich v'lo yilacha shamar kadosh baruch hu says dibros v'chazar pish digdid. So why, if it was like all one thing, then why, as Maharal is going to tell us, why is there any particular order to the psukim and the letters and the words that come afterwards? No. Hashem said the Ten Commandments twice. At first, it was like kiviyachol in a zip file. It was like all compressed into one thing. And then he said it again sequentially, which is how sound works. In a certain way, the first time was like seeing. This is Leibish, it's not the Maharal. In a certain way, seeing is also an instant, total experience. And hearing is a sequential process, right? So Matan Torah began with like a hearing that was a seeing, right? And then went into a seeing that was a hearing was seeing. Okay. First it was all at once, and then sequential. Then he went back and said, Dibur v'dibur b'fnei atzmo. Shomea ani af kol dibur shebetorah nemru kulam v'dibur echad. Could it be that everything else, also like the whole 5 books of the Torah, were all said in one utterance? Talmud lomar es kol dvarim ha'ela hadvarim ha'ela nemru v'dibur echad. These 10 commandments had this special thing of being communicated in an instant. Ushar dibros. Dibur v'dibur b'fnei atzmo. But all the other times, everything else in the Torah was in the normal sequential form. Moshe writing it, Moshe saying it, Hashem telling him, and so on. And well, I don't know if we'll get to the Maharal in this last part, but I'll just mention it. Lemor, sometimes Chazal learn Lemor, like Vaydaber Elokim, as Kodrim Ha'ela, Lemor, like in English you say, and God spoke all of these words, saying, but also could mean causing to say. The word Lemor can mean a response. So over here, there's a machlokas. Shayomrim al hein hein val lav lav. Rishmal says it means Lemor means that it was meant to elicit a response from Klal Yisrael. Rishmal says it means that when there was a positive commandment of the Ten Commandments, they said hein, which means yes, and there was a negative commandment saying no, like we won't do that, right? And Rabbi Akiva learned no, it was different. Al hein hein val lav hein. On the positives, they said yes, and on the negatives, they also said yes, meaning yes, we accept it, as we'll see. Okay. Bir Davazeh. This is like, you could just feel the Maharal. Like when I saw this thing and then like how he got it in there, like it's so him. I'm getting a little bit of sense of him. Like this is a midrash that would get him like sink his teeth into. Okay. Bir Davazeh. Bir Davazeh. Ki elo aser sadibras ru'urim hayu. These 10 commandments were most appropriate. Sheyiyu nemram b'divrei echad, that they should be said in one instant. V'zeki Torah he seder ha'olam. Now this word seder is going to keep on reappearing. Seder ha'olam. What is a seder? So he kind of explains what a seder is. Chol seder mekasher davar im davar. An order to things means that it elucidates and reveals the connection from one thing to another thing. And when all things are interconnected, then they kind of lock in and they're all one thing. Just like let's say the human body is all interconnected to each other, and it's nothing wrong with saying the human body is a single thing. You say it's like 5 billion cells and a bunch of hairs and weird things and vessels and pumping things and pipes and whatever. There's an elegance and a oneness because there's an order to it. If each thing related, you can see how each thing relates to each other. And the Torah is that. The Torah is that order of the world. I just want to bring in one more thing to this. And he doesn't say here, but there's another place where he says about Seder night, about the Seder. The Maharal says, and I never saw it inside the Maharal, but I heard it from Moshe Weinberger in a Pesach Shir, that there are 4 parts to the Torah, pardes, Pshat, Remez, Drash, and Sod. The simple meaning, the hinted meaning, the midrashic meaning, the secret meaning. And Seder is the 3 meanings that are the secret, the drash, the homiletical, or the midrashic, and the hinted, but it's missing the pei. It's missing the simple meaning, because the Seder of Seder night is meant to do what? To elicit questions, to get the kids to ask, to create a sense of movement and relationship with God. And wow, like chayav kol adam lerot et atzmo ki'ilu atzmo yatsa mitzrayim. Yeah, exactly. To really help you see yourself. So the Seder of the world, when we say the Torah is the Seder of the world, doesn't just mean in a static sense of just like a diagram of the inner things of what's it does give us more and more insight about how interconnected everything is and what Hashem's plan was for this world. But it also, you can never quite nail down the pshat. It's missing the pay. It's a seder but it doesn't mean that it takes away the mystery of existence, and you can get a sense of the seder, right? It enhances the mystery of existence by seeing how orderly things are, and then wonder, wow, mi bara ela, who created all of this, right? The Torah is the seder of the world, the order, and the relation the relationality, the relationship, the fact that things are all interconnected. And once you see that things are interconnected, then it makes sense to call it all one. Now he gets into the letters, and this is Guval, that he jumps right into the letters, because the deepest order that there is the order of the alphabet. And the order of the alphabet is so amazing, because there's a rightness to the alphabet, and the combinations that once you have the scale, you can make all the music in the world, right? You have the letters and how they all relate, and each has their place in the thing. Then Gewalt, There are 22 letters through which the entire Torah is given. They're Hashem's flaming crown, written in a fire with a fiery pen, are the 22 letters of the Aleph Beis on Hashem's crown. At the time when Hashem was asking or planning to create the world, all the letters came off the crown and stood before Hashem. Each letter said, start creating the world with me. I want to be the first letter. Right? They were excited. Each one says, so at first, Nichnas Tav, the letter Tav came in. The last letter. And said, Ribbon Shalom, said, Master of the world. Ritzoncha shetivra bi ha'olam, would it be your will to make the world through me? Shebiya ta'atid litain Torah l'Yisrael. It's through me that you're going to give the Torah, as it says, Torah tziva lanu Moshe. Torah, I'm the Tav. Perfect. And Hashem says, wow, no. There's a heavy pasuk in the Navi that the Hisvita Tav, that Hashem will carve out like a letter Tav on the foreheads of those who are doing wrong.
What we call tough luck.
Tough luck. And so the Tav was rejected, right? And we're going to learn more about the Tav later. Nobody is really rejected. He just wasn't going to be the letter that's the first letter of the Torah. And then the Shin came, and so through all of them, until finally the letter Bet. Hashem said, no, he had to read each one of them, no. Each one of them had some nice word that they start with, and each one of them had some negative concept that they relate to. And Hashem said, yeah, but what about this negative? And the letter Bet said, how about me? They're going to bless you through me. Even the word blessing starts with a Bet in English. Baruch Hashem Yom Yom. And Hashem said, yes, hey, it's you, the letter Bet. I found you. Never Bereshit Baruch. And he chose the Bet. Meanwhile, the Aleph came into Rosh Hashanah Baruch Hu Kibel Livro Lam Bet. He saw that Bet got the job to create the world. Amad lo latzad echad v'shatak. The Aleph was standing off to the side, quiet. Aleph is like, okay, didn't even get a tryout, right? Until Hashem called out to him and said, Aleph, mipnei mata shotek venata omer li klum. How are you being quiet? How come you're not saying anything? Yeshivat Aleph answered, I have no strength to say anything before you. The Aleph answer is very interesting. All the other letters are multiple in the gematria of each letter, right? The numbering of each letter, and up until the letter Yud, and then starts the tens, 10, 20, 30, 40, like Yud, Chaf, Lam, and then Kuf is 100, and Resh is 200, and I, Mani, Minyan, Muad. I am qualitatively different than every other letter, because they're all multiples, and I'm just one, which is like mamish. a completely different like universe and all the rest of it, right? Amazing thing. I'm mamish the odd one out, I say, right? Even the number 3 was an odd number, but at least it's a multiple. I'm just one. Like oh, but he's a gewalt. No. Don't be afraid. You're the head of all of them. Like a king. Ata echad, ve'ani echad, ve'hatorah achas. You're one individual. It may be lonely, but I also am one. Senses. And the Torah also is one. But very deeply one. The Torah achat, that singular Torah, that unitary, that simple oneness of what the Torah is that I will give to Am Yisrael, and becha la Ami Yisrael. Through you will you be given to my nation. Shenemar noichi, right? Now noichi is the majesty. But there's another midrash. Lama b'bet. Why is it the bet was chosen? Shehu lashon bracha, because bet comes in the word blessing. V'lo ba'alef shehu lashon arur, and not with an aleph, which is the word of person. These midrashim are teaching us great matters.
There's nothing that starts with that that's like that.
Oh, excellent question. He's going to bring Ibn Ezra asked that question. He's going to give Maharal's going to give a great answer because this is close to no, it's gewaldig. It's adrabah, buzzkill. Okay. Kira'ui ha'ada ha'olam shenivra b'bet. It makes sense. This is the Maharal. This is like huge matter that it makes ultimate, the deepest sense in the world that the world is created with letter bet, and that is kibet befrat hu hatchalat haribui. The letter bet is the first possible number of multiplicity, 2, right? And that's what this world is all about, the emergence of multiplicity. That this world is. Of course, the bet is the first, right? Shaharei ha'alef ein bo ribui. This is exactly what was going on there between the bet and the aleph. Vilu betu hatchalat haribui, and the bet is the beginning. The bet is different than also different from all the other multiple numbers because it's the first possible multiple number. Vehu bracha, and it's related to this inyan of bless. What blessing is. Blessing is to multiply, prove, or vu, right? Vayvarech osam elokim. Afichach milas barech, and therefore the letters bet, resh, and chaf are all the 2s. The bet is in the single digits. The resh is 2 in the 200s, and chaf is 20. Osios hashnios, they're all the 2s in the different digits in the different systems. Shehem lashon bracha. Shemin hasheni, because from that which is second is the beginning of all blessing. That's the pipeline for bracha, to take things and double and then triple, and then like when a baby is being formed, first it's 1 cell, then it's 2, then it's, I don't know how exponentially how it grows there in the womb, right? The arur, whereas curse, that starts with an aleph. Ki aleph hu echad, because that oneness does not have multiplicity, which is blessing. It's just stuck in its oneness, and that's the issue, the concept of a curse. Very interesting, right? I'll just pause for a moment to tell you what Reb Shlomo said about this. It relates also to what we were talking about in terms of Torah. Reb Shlomo says, even though the 10 Commandments start with an aleph, but the Torah starts with a bet, right? Bereshis is the beginning of the Torah, where the Torah tells the story of the Torah being given, and where what we first heard was the aleph, but it's always preceded by a base. He says, what does this mean? It means when you want to teach Torah to a child, it's not much so. Reb Shlomo was he would have given you the cut. What the teaching of a child is, if you start just with, because one is the aleph is something you stuck. You're just one. There's nothing else you can do, right? And that's kind of a little bit, yeah, what the Torah is. Tefillin. There's no like, you can't just like, I'm taking the day off from tefillin. There are Shabbos is Shabbos. It's not Sunday. There are things you just cannot change them. There, it's like they're stuck in the aleph. But if you just start the whole Yiddishkeit only with that, then the child is just feeling stuck. You have to begin with bracha. You have to begin with telling the child, this is the Torah is here for you to grow. The Torah is here to multiply, to bless you, to bring out more of you, for you to be fruitful, for you to do good deeds, and for you to become a giver in the world. Okay, and here's how. It's got to be Shabbos, you know. But the first message, if it's just the first thing is you must, and it doesn't start with the first message of how great you are and you're going to produce and Hashem loved you and you know you're blessed, then it can be difficult. It can be difficult. So the aleph on the one hand, you need to kind of take the aleph out of the exile of cursing, of being stuck, and bring it to the redemptive place of oneness, the good oneness, the godly oneness. Shehabriya hi habracha ba'olam. Creation itself was one big bracha, and expansion, multiplicity. How could that start with an aleph? Shem is a bracha klal. It's not, the aleph is not a letter that represents growing and multiplicity and Afkishar and Ribu Yoser, and even though the other letters have even a bigger number than the number 2, but since it's the beginning, therefore that is through it that all blessing flows. That you can't make the world with a tav. Why? Even though the letter tav, of course, is going to be the beginning of a lot of positive concepts and is related to like Ein Sefek, and same thing with all the letters, they have positivities to them, but they could also be brought into negative. So we're going to see soon how. So what about the letter bet? There's no bad things to start with bet, so there are. We're going to see in a minute how he deals with that. Masha Amar Hatav, and when he told the letter Tav that in the future it's going to be going on engraved on the people's heads of the negativities of what they've done, is because the letter Tav is related to purpose, Tachlit. So that's what the letter Tav was trying to argue on its own behalf. I'm related to the purpose, which is Torah. Torah Tzivalanu. The problem is that some people, their goals won't be Torah, and we can't take something that could be related to a negative outcome. Beginning of the world has to be good without that. So you can't start with a tav that could also mean a negative outcome. But the letter bet, since it's the beginning of multiplicity, therefore that means that in and of itself, it's pointing to blessing. And even if the letter bet, ve'ima betu mishamesh l'ra, could also be the beginning of some bad words, the letter bet. Mikol makom davar ze etzim habet. But the fact that it is the first of the multiple letters is at its very essence. Shehi ois sheni. It is the second letter. Shehasheni hu haschalas hariba. Being second means it's the beginning of all multiple. V'hu etzem habracha. Therefore, the letter bet is the essence of bracha. And even though the letter bet could form negative words, that's just, it could be used that way. That which could be doesn't negate that which is at the essence. Whereas the other letters don't have at their essence their blessing. Only the letter bet, because it's the beginning of multiplicity.
It's the best.
It's the best.
Sorry, I can't.
It's geschmack. Adarabba. The Vichach Amar Shebo Ro Livro Ha'olam Shekol Makom Kol Yom V'Yom.
רבי נחמן אומר, כסף לפני תפילה.
תודה.
צ'יינג'.
וואו,
לא, אני הבאתי לכם את ה50 שקל שלי.
אם יש לי...
אבל עכשיו אני צריכה צ'יינג' ואני רוצה שלך.
אני באמצע שיעור, you have 250?
Not sure.
ודבר זה הסבר בחיבור גוזס. Okay. And the Ibn Ezra had a lot of trouble with this midrash because of this question. He said, what do you mean? All the letters could be positive or could be negative. Vapitom, that the letter bet gets chosen, it doesn't have any negative words. Like, what's your question? And he says that the Ibn Ezra said that this midrash, like it's tadarabba, mamash tadarabba. Tizkir mitzvot.
אוי, אולי אני אביא לך מהדפה, אני אגיד הבת שלי לבוא אליך, אוקיי? אפשר לעשות העברות בד.
מה שאפשר. Okay. You never know, right? With this 50 shekel, that's it. Like it could open all the gates. Who knows? Donations welcome, Chaver. Okay. Yeah, she's one of the characters. Yeah. Kiyesh of she'ena. Okay, so the Ibn Ezra wrote all kinds of negative things about this midrash, like what is this midrash saying? And the Maharal says, what do you mean? The Ibn Ezra doesn't know that divrei chachamim ne'emanim divreim emes b'chachma hu lo hevin divrei chachma. He's like, he gets into all the language that the Ibn Ezra brings against the midrash, and then he gets the language against him. His mom is coming against him, a few centuries later. Kitab says Yeshivat Ibn Ezra Masheheshi Kodesh. Okay, so like he said the Ibn Ezra was missing this nekuda, that in order to understand the midrash of Rabbi Akiva about the letter bet being starting one with bracha, you have to know the other midrash that corresponds, that compares the bet and the aleph, because the aleph is single and the bet is the beginning of multiple, and therefore the bet is essentially bracha. It's not just that it could start with the word bracha or could start other bad words, like that you have the same with all other letters, and it would be indistinguishable. It would make no sense why the bet is chosen. But if you understand that the bet is the first of the multiple letters, then you have a greater, right? This is like you said. So now, Mihine ha'alef shatak. Meantime, aleph is silent. Maharal Kadosh Baruch Hu says, "Why are you being quiet?" Ke'ilu hadavar she'ein bo ribui hu garua, as if something that does not have multiplicity is no good. Right, the aleph is really different from the other letters. All the other letters are multiples. The aleph is the only one that's a single. The aleph. And Dara say, no, it's not true. It's not bad. Not bad. Yesh the aleph naila mitzad achtus. The aleph has actually a great positive because it has oneness. That's similar to God in a way that none of the other letters have. The Chacham HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ata Echad, Va'ani Echad, V'hatorah Hu Achas. You're one, I'm also one, Hashem says this. And the Torah is one. And this is, we said, the Torah is the order of the world, which means the Torah teaches us when we really get Torah glasses and Torah life, we're able to see how existence itself, with all of its multiplicity, goes back to being echad. The Torah teaches us the inner meaning behind it, that this world is a backdrop for relationship, all for the sake of being able to relate to Hashem, to relate to each other, to relate to ourselves in healthy ways. And when we really, really learn that and understand it and get it, that everything Hashem made was with that thought of being able to have those relationships, then the world becomes not as scary. It's the multiplicity of it. It melts into the oneness. The Torah is like the order of the world. When we really deeply enough, like we said, it's the kind of order that make it a static, simple thing that brings out deeper and deeper mystery of the oneness. And therefore, according to all of this, what the Torah does is it brings that oneness into the world and relates the multiplicity of the world back to the oneness of Hashem. The letter Bet starts the creation of the world. The letter Bet is also distinguished from the other letters. It's the first of the multiple letters, and therefore it's connected to bracha more deeply than anything else, and than any other letter. It's the beginning of multiple. And that's a wonderful thing that we have this whole multiple world. But then the Aleph brings it all back to the oneness of Hashem and makes it that this multiple world doesn't hide Hashem, but Adarabba, it becomes a place where we can live those relationships forever and ever. This is why the Torah starts with the letter Aleph. The Ten Commandments starts with the letter Aleph. I am Hashem. These beautiful words. The Torah is the opposite of the world. Shehu Riboy, because the world is Riboy. The Torah he Seder Ha'olam, the Kishra Olam, she Echad, and the Torah is the order and interconnectedness of the world that roots it all back to the oneness of Hashem. And therefore also when Hashem expressed this, he said all of it, B'dibur Echad. As Kol Advar Ma'ila Leimor, it says in Rashi brings in the Chumash that Hashem said the whole Ten Commandments in one infinitesimally tiny instant. And then he said it over again sequentially. Right? Anochi Hashem, let's say the Ten Commandments again. The Torah is such a deep seder, such that it reveals the Misader, the one who made that order, which is Hashem, who is one. Therefore, the beginning of the Torah is Aleph, and the creation of the world is Bet. Bet comes before Aleph. Therefore, Dafka, the Ten Commandments are said in one utterance. To teach you that the Torah in essence is one, and it's one Seder, one Gavaldic thing that has a unity of purpose and a unity that everything all fits together for that for that purpose of being a backdrop for relationships. Because the Ten Commandments are the root. The Rav Sadiq and the Mamish explains it, how you could find all the 613 mitzvahs rooted in the Ten Commandments. So it's like a highly concentrated version of the Torah, of everything. I mean, all in there. They're all contained within those 10 Commandments, and those 10 Commandments were all said in a single utterance that is like impossible for us to imagine. Why is that? Because the Torah itself is one, and that's one of the great signs. Hashem should be blessed. At the beginning of this year, every time we learn, each thing that we learn, each halacha, each pasuk, each Torah idea, should contain within it and give us a sense of the whole Torah. Because it does. It all the Torah in what it really is, it's one. It's mamish one. And this is something I felt I got from Reb Shlomo Carlebach. And the great teachers in life, they talking about whatever they're talking about, like whatever shiur, whatever thing. They're giving you the whole Torah. Mom is giving over to the whole. Really, really giving. They're really going into the next generation. Mom is Masoda. It's really being passed. I never heard from Reb Shlomo Shir in Baba Basra or whatever. I heard from him what I heard, Shlomo Torahs and Baal Shem Tovs and Navi a little bit, and whatever it is I learned from him. I gave you the whole thing. It's a very special thing to find those people and get it. People who get this oneness and know how to do this balance of the bet and the aleph, to give you such a sense of blessing and you're blessed and love, and give you the oneness of Torah, and give you the chiyuv, the obligation of Torah, without it being a rur, without the aleph turning into a cursed place of stuff, but rather a real blessed place of oneness. And don't ask, well, why is the Torah different from the world? And it's so amazing when Maharal talks like so big. Don't ask, wait a minute, the world also comes from one God who made an order to the world. So the world should be just as unified as the Torah is. Right? Give up, like a kasha, So nice when like really great people talk in such a huge way. To ask them, it's a real empty question. Why? The order is one thing, and the creation itself as it's manifest is another thing. You don't necessarily see that order when you see a manifest. The manifest creation can be very confusing and dark and not it doesn't necessarily shine back to its source. The Torah he said to is it's true that creation comes from God, only from God. But the creation itself is not the order. The Seder Habriya he had Torah, and the order of creation is Torah. And therefore the beginning of the Torah is daf with the aleph. There's a difference. It is true that Maharal says elsewhere in verse Hashem that the 10 plagues which affected nature were in order to reveal the 10 utterances behind creation, which could then make us ready to hear the 10 commandments of the Torah. 10 plagues, 10 utterances, 10 commandments. 10 plagues like crack open the egg of the hiddenness of the world and start to reveal the oozing goodness of God. The 10 plagues like then you could the utterances, and then you can like fry the egg with the heat of the Torah. I don't know what I'm doing. It's too late at night. But the point is, the point is, good for him. The point is that there is such a thing as finding consonances between Torah and the world. But here he's saying, the world is made with a bet, because when the world is made, its essential quality is multiplicity. That's the whole chiddush of the world, is multiplicity. And then the Torah is the order that then roots it back in the oneness and makes the whole thing usable, workable, livable. Even more than that, like wonderful, right? The Oyes Chaladat is just a bit more. Okay. Okay, it says particularly the 10 commandments are the part of the Torah that should have been said, the Dibur Echad, as they were, one instantaneous utterance. Because the Torah, which is from Hashem, is one, and there's nothing that comes before the Torah is the beginning. I have a special request for my wife to come home earlier tonight, and she knows the shir is supposed to end at 9. Let me just see if I can kind of. Stop. We've had great things revealed to us. The world makes sense to be created with a bet. And the bet, particularly since it's the beginning of multiplicity, because the aleph has no multiplicity, but the bet is the beginning of multiplicity, the hu bracha. The fichach milas barech, therefore the letters bet reish chaf are for bracha are all second letters. And that's the whole idea, is that the creation is one big blessing. That's what it's supposed to be. That's what it is. But for us to receive it and understand it and relate to it, we need the aleph. We need that sense of oneness behind all of it to be able to receive the breath of creation. We don't see it necessarily. Oh, wait a minute. Did I actually? Yeah, I think I skipped back somehow in the middle. Oh, yeah, that was the end. And then he just says about, remember Rabbi Kiva said that they said yes to everything, even the negative commandments of the commandments. Rabbi Shmuel said they said yes to the positives and no to the negatives. So he explains how did the receiving happen? It's machlokas about how did the receiving happen. According to Rabbi Yishmael, the receiving was divided into positives and negatives. When they received the Ten Commandments, we perceived it as different. There's some that are telling me yes to do, and some telling me what not to do. And so the positivity of the get up and do elicited from us a response of yes, and the negativity of don't do elicited a response of no, because that was how we received it. The way we receive it should be in consonance with the way that it is presented. And if it's presented to do something, so you say, yes, I'll do it. Then the don't do something, then it's received as, no, I won't do it. And Rabbi Akiva, who said they said yes to everything, even the don't do's. For Rabbi Akiva, he held that the essence is not receiving the decree or the mitzvah in its quality of how it is. The essence is receiving it itself. The essence is just the receiving. Whatever the decree is. And so therefore, Hashem says, don't do this. You say, yes. That's a Rabbi Kiva, because the Indian was just the receiving of it. In any case, you should be blessed to receive it. That's how we end the chapter. Sorry to be a little abrupt, but I got a manage go. Laila Tov, thanks for coming.